Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
You're a good dancer.
I'm not.
Oh.
I'm just getting with my jams, my Martial Culture Podcast jam.
Yeah? I wonder if there's a longer version of that song.
Dun, dun.
We should find it. Let's record it. Let's do a music video for the intro to the show.
Totally, let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll all twerk.
Oh, God. I don't know. Never mind. It's been canceled. The music videos. Everybody sent me an email and said, don't do it. So we have to stop. I'm sorry. Welcome back to the Martial Culture Podcast.
Yes, we kind of veered off topic already. We kind of do that a lot.
That's what we do. Topics are for weak-minded indivildivals. We just go where we need to go.
Yes.
Boy, jinx. We just did it at the same time.
We're meditating.
Yeah. We should do a podcast where we meditate for 5 minutes before we start. People might
how are
actually
you
like
doing?
that. I'm fine.
You doing fine?
Yeah.
I'm doing great.
I had a really big cup of coffee recently, and it was espresso blend. So I'm a little jumpy.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We had one podcast where I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna do this. I'm about to fall asleep, and then I had like two double shots at Starbucks. I'm like, welcome to.
You're ready to go.
I felt like I was on drugs.
You brought me a present written in some sort of ancient Sanskrit.
No, it is Japanese.
Oh,
it's
Japanese.
a Japanese treat, and it's funny. People always ask me, "What should you eat before you train?" And actually, I don't
lots
have
of
it.
rice. Right?
I mean, it's not a bad idea. Actually, carb loading is not bad, depending on what you want to do. But depending on what you want to do, before races, a lot of times it's good to carb load and things like that. But this was my thing when I trained in Japan. I didn't have a lot of money, so because obviously I was just a poor fighter, just training, right? And spend most of my time in the gym. So what I would go to is the local convenience store. Like they have 7-Elevens all over Japan and things that look just like 7-Eleven. And most of the one I went to was this one called Lawson, right? And they would have these small cakes like you're eating right now. It's called dorayaki, and it has 2 pancakes with red bean paste inside. And the Japanese sweets are really interesting because they're a little bit lower in sugar. They're not like chocolate heavy. They're mostly made from red bean paste, or sometimes actually like ground up herbs. Like there's an herb called yomogi and all these other ones. They ground them up. These like grassy, very flavorful herbs, like kind of like we would consider like something like cilantro or basil or something like that. But they have a little bit more desserty,
more savory.
I mean they I don't know. I guess for us Westerners, it would seem a little bit more savory, but it is desserty to the Japanese. It has a
good blend.
Yeah. And so they mix that with red bean, and it's actually like Japanese desserts are, as desserts go, extraordinarily healthy. And so I would eat that, and it's basically two pancakes, so it's just carbs, and then you have protein in the middle from the red beans, and a little bit of sugar. There's maybe a little too much sugar, but I would eat that, and I would be just ready to rock and roll.
Wow.
And it also very tasty, and it also give me a good mood because it's something like kind of a little bit desserty, it's a little sweet, and not too sweet. And so it's something that whenever I look at the dorayaki pancake, I always think of training before. I would get one of those and train, and then I'd be ready to go.
There you go. My wife and I started this 30-day yoga challenge.
30-day yoga?
Yeah,
oh, no kidding. That's great.
We're on day 2.
Wow.
But we did day 2 a couple times because it was a little rough. I've never done it before, so we started like day 1, and it's like, and then day 2, it's like, what the hell? This is not day 2. Can you look at the video? Look at the back of the VHS. But before I started day 2, I had a grilled cheese sandwich, and didn't seem like a good idea.
No, I don't think. Especially when you do like the stomach stuff they do in yoga. When it's a full stomach, it's bad.
It was not easy. And then you're farting and stuff. It's just, I apologize.
When I was training seriously, I did a good amount of Bikram and this is mostly in California, because I would stay at my sister's place, and I was training in academies in California, mostly with Higa Machado's academy, but near my sister's place also a Bikram yoga studio, a hot yoga studio. And of course, Bikram yoga, I don't know if you've heard about him. He's turned out to be kind of a Harvey Weinstein, sexual, assaulter. Yeah. So it's very sad. But his system of yoga was actually, he didn't even develop it. It was developed by his teacher. And the concept of being in heat is it gets you very limber. And so I did it. But the first time I did it, man, it was a gut check. I was like, it's really, really, really hot in here. And I didn't bring water. I was like, bring water. You should bring water.
Yoga.
I'm like, it's just yoga. It's just how hot could it be? Holy God. Yeah. And I'm like, I had to summon all my toxic masculinity, manly, like thing. Like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna quit. There's this girl next to me, and she's doing all this. I'm not, and I'm just dying.
Yikes.
And no, which was totally stupid. But then the next day I brought water and I was prepared, and I did it. But yoga's a great addendum to martial arts, and a great good thing for life.
We accidentally did hot yoga. We just kept the windows and doors closed, and we're like, "Oh shit, it's hot in here." Open the door. No, you have to keep the cats out. Oh my god, they'd love yoga. Cats fucking love yoga.
Well, there's the cat pose. So
there you go.
There you go.
I haven't gotten there yet. A lot of child pose. That's where I hang out most of the time. It's like I'm just gonna child pose over here. You continue.
Your inner child.
Yeah, man. I just kind of connect with the kids. That's what they say. I don't know.
So did you watch Bellator this weekend?
I didn't watch because I'm boycotting Bellator because they're horrible. No, I'm not boycotting. I didn't watch it because I didn't think it would be good. I watched the highlights this morning, and apparently they had a record-breaking 14 finishes, 7 by submission, 7 by TKO.
I'm not a big fan of Bellator, and I actually just had this conversation on the way here. And you could call them, good. I don't know what to call them, but mismatches. But a good term is a squash match, meaning it's not fixed. It is not a fixed fight. And we talked about it in the last podcast. But the matchmaking is such that the winner is very much understood. And so if you're putting someone who's extraordinarily skilled with grappling against someone who's never done a day of grappling in their life, probably the grappler will win. Or you're putting two guys together who all they do is stand in front of each other and brawl. You're going to get a knockout. Who knocks who out? Who knows? But so there's
so the fix was in on this one. Maybe?
I'm not saying, but I'm saying Bellator does that a lot, where they and every promotion has some sort of protection, but Bellator does a lot. Which is one of the reasons why I don't really watch them. I also think that the level of their technique is, generally speaking, not as good as the UFC. Generally speaking, they have some standout fighters, but overall, it's not. I prefer to watch the UFC in one.
The only name I recognized was Matt Mitrio.
Yeah, did he lost?
He got knocked out.
Of course, I know. Kharitonov is a slugger, and I could tell you that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I've never been a Matt Mitrione fan, even when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's just one of those journeyman guys that will get to a certain level and will never really improve past that.
Changing gears a little bit. I don't want you want to spend more time on Bellator? Is there anything else?
Sure, whatever you want to
know. Did you hear Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather are going at it again?
No.
In Japan? Again, remember that other guy he fought? The little guy?
Nasukawa Tenshin.
Yeah, so it's a 3-way. It's not going to be a boxing match. It's not going to be an MMA fight. It's going to be feats of strength. There's a Japanese TV show.
Oh, Japanese TV show. Yes. Actually,
so they're going to do
Hickson Gracie was actually on that.
So they're just going to do like whoever's the strongest guy lifting something up,
and
running around and all this stuff.
The Japanese, Japanese TV sometimes is absolutely horrible.
I love Japanese,
but sometimes it's super hilarious.
Ninja Warrior.
Right.
I like the old Ninja Warrior more than the new one.
I never watched that much of it, but they the Japanese TV is actually really, really, it's like that side of Japanese that's very sadist. And when I got to Japan, the first time I got there, I'd watch TV and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is like embarrassing people so much. And then by the time I'd lived there 6 years, I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. I've been indoctrinated. This is a tough topic, but the meanest Japanese TV show I've ever seen, absolute meanest show, has nothing to do with martial arts, but is they get a girlfriend and boyfriend, and the girlfriend wants to test her boyfriend's fealty to her, her loyalty. So if she kind of thinks that he's not super loyal, they will go and send a very, very pretty ingenue to kind of like work with him or something like that. And hey, you want to go out? And then each time they'll be feeding him questions like to see what his answers. Do you have a girlfriend? And he'll say, no. Do you have? How long? You sure? What's your past girlfriend? No.
Look out, guys.
And then it's digging him deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole, and it's absolutely horrible and hilarious at the same time. And then at the end, he has to face his girlfriend.
Wow, his ex-girlfriend.
His ex-girlfriend.
Yikes.
And it's
the answer. If you have a girlfriend,
question, when you watch it.
Do you have a girlfriend? Yes.
Yes, right.
If a beautiful woman walks up to you, and a supermodel, and asks you if you have a girlfriend, it's a trap.
It's a trap.
Unless you're Ryan Reynolds, it's a trap. Never fall for it.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Especially in Japan.
It was actually pretty funny. But unfortunately, there was a time where they have these Hickson Gracie is also Kira Gracie. You know what Kira Gracie is? Hickson's niece, great niece. He's from the other side of the family. But the two Gracies were in Japan, and they have these they're not just feats of strength, but they do interesting athletic challenges. One of them, and Hickson won this, was how long he could hold his breath. And the guy can hold his breath for an amazingly long amount of time.
Wow.
And it's body control. And it was actually, and then there was another one, it was balance, where you kind of like have pugil sticks, or they're trying to knock you off with balance. And Hickson did pretty well. He didn't win it. Usually it's like someone with gymnastics training who wins it. That's usually, it's kind of...
The show they're going to be on is called Superstars.
Superstars. Yeah. They have a lot of shows like that. And they're interesting. It's like, and the question is, it's like, that it's like, who is the best athlete? So it's like, okay, is the football player the best athlete? Is a baseball player the best athlete? Who's the best athlete overall?
Ballet dancers.
You know, I would not disagree with you when it comes to precision footwork. People who do dance, I wouldn't just say ballet, but any dance, or have a. Do you know who Lomachenko is? Lomachenko, the famous boxer. He's like one of the best boxers around right now, and I actually think he's much better than Mayweather. You know what? His dad took him out of boxing for years. He said, "You're not going to box. You're going to dance." He had him dancing, and now Lomachenko has the best footwork of any combat fighter in the world.
Yeah,
you know, any combat striker, I should say.
Okay.
Dancing. So, but the question is like, you know, like what's the best athlete? Well, what are you talking about here? Are you talking about endurance running? Are you talking about power, explosiveness? You know, and gymnasts across the board score well on everything: coordination, body awareness, and strength endurance, explosive strength, some cardio as well, you know? So it's very interesting. And swimmers are up there as well. And so it's kind of interesting. And that's what I like about MMA. So I'm sure that MMA fighters, although I don't know 100%, but I'm sure they would score generally high, because there's so many skills necessary for it to be a successful MMA fighter. Like if you took like Henry Cejudo or Demetrius Johnson or Khabib, or even Conor McGregor, and you put them in a variety of tests that test all their different skills, you know, I think it'd be interesting to see how they perform, you know?
Yeah. They do well.
Yeah.
But back to Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
You guys do any of that training over at Radical? You have the salmon ladder set up?
Salmon ladder? What's that?
It's
I've never actually seen like more than 30 seconds of Ninja
They hold
Warrior.
like a metal pole, and there's levels of like different ladder rungs, and they have to move the pole up the ladder.
Oh, it's like a peg, but it's a bar. You have
Yeah.
to jump it. Oh, right. That sounds really hard.
It does look hard, but
Yeah.
they make it look easy because they're like on season 25.
Yeah.
You know?
I saw this one show in Japan too, which was, it seems like the most boring show you've ever heard. It was actually like gripping. It's basically the World Push-Up Challenge. And they start at 10 o'clock, and it's all live. And I remember watching this. It was like on a Saturday. It was like I tuned in whenever it started. I don't know when it started, but they're basically sitting there, and the gong. They have this bell like boom, boom, or it's like a gong, whatever. And it was like one push up, and they have a little device underneath to make sure you're doing the proper push up, right? To measure it. Boom, and it starts out like started out 2,000 people in a stadium, and then as it went on, obviously people tap out. And it went from 2,000 to 1,000, then 1,000 to 800, and then we're getting up into like the 2,000 push-up, 3,000 push-up range. It's crazy. I don't know remember how many it was, but it was unbelievable amount of push-ups, and good push-ups too, right? Not because the device measures, right? And this guy, the guy who won it, was a Japanese pararescue guy. And it was an ungodly amount of push-ups.
Okay.
And there's no water break. There's nothing like that. And they were there for hours. So it's like a marathon. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I cannot take my eyes away from this thing. It's like
you're just watching people fall.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly what you watch. They're trying to give out, and they fall over, and they're going over, and they're like, argh! And it was absolutely gripping. And I remember we're just sitting there. We couldn't turn the channel, and then it was like boom, then boom. Boom.
Wow.
Push-up after push-up after push-up. You're just mesmerized. Like, oh my God, is they going to quit? And they're coming over like talking to the people. Like
Talking to
them?
them?
Yeah, I know. It's like
Get away
terrible.
from me. I'm doing push-ups.
Exactly right.
Jesus. So we do one of those for like a live stream for the show. I could do 2, maybe. So I don't know how many you can do.
Nah, I don't know. I have a bad shoulder right now, but the
More
most
than 2.
no, the most I ever did was 100 straight.
There you go. That's
That was
really
the most
good.
I ever did my whole life, 100 straight. But I usually capped it. I didn't see the utility in that, but I usually capped it at in a good. I was like 75. That's as a martial artist, I think you should be able to knock out 75.
Yeah, but since I'm not like trained, I get to do girl push-ups.
No,
No. All right.
no.
I get to have a designated push-upper. I get to call somebody else.
So I was like, yeah, you get a call a friend.
Phone a friend.
Phone
yeah.
a friend.
I need you to do push-ups for me. I need you to do at least 101. I have to win.
But
Yeah. All right.
in the going back to Bellator, what was I going to say? There was a heel hook, diving Imanari heel hook, which is diving. Did you see it?
No.
Where the guy dove underneath, spun around, and tapped him out. And it's the fastest finish in Bellator history. It was like 6 seconds. One of the fastest in MMA. Not the fastest,
But it was a
so-
fixed fight, so it doesn't matter.
No, it wasn't fixed. It was, but it's interesting because it was slightly dirty because one of the guys came out to touch gloves, but there's no rule saying you have to touch gloves. So it is what it is.
It's an unwritten rule.
Yeah,
Fight like men.
yeah, I guess so.
Touch your gloves.
But
Touch the tips.
anyway,
Huh? I just wondered if anybody heard that joke.
Yeah, he was laughing.
Comment on our Instagram page if you heard that joke.
But he did this Imanari roll, and it's interesting. Let me back off and say why I think it's interesting because there's another guy who has a podcast named Stephen Casting, and he's been in the martial arts for years and years, and he said if you told me that a guy diving on his back, spinning 360 degrees around, catching the guy's leg, and then using that to knock him over and heel hook him is a legitimate or, high percentage move, not high percentage, but a legitimate move, I would say, 15 years ago, you're smoking crack. This is ridiculous. Like, that would never work. And you can see that it's been pulled off in the UFC a number of times. Ryan Hall did it. Ryan Hall did it to BJ Penn. He did a slight different variation. But did you see that fight, BJ Penn and Ryan Hall, where he just dove under him, spun around, heel hooked him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that? So it's actually absolutely a legitimate move. So this is very important because what we think would work and then what really works, is not always the same. I remember the 70s where people were poo-pooing on all grappling. No, I mean, they were like, that'll never work. I'll just elbow him in the skull and knock him out. Yeah. And that would never work. I mean, literally martial art masters would have from the striking background. And this is not to any specific style. I know many of them. I won't say what style I personally engage in, but so many masters would say that. But it was across the board. Whether you're Muay Thai or this, it's like, the guy would never take me down. He'll never grapple with me. The only person who consistently have said that and took it seriously and put it in his training was Bruce Lee. And that's a fact. And I'm not like the biggest Bruce Lee, fan. I think he's fine. But it's true that Bruce Lee was like, you must know grappling. And Bruce Lee said that if, a D1 wrestler would go to Asia and mop up almost all the strikers there. Wow. Because they just don't know how to grapple. And so that happened. Then in the 90s, they flipped the other way. The 90s were like, oh, striking doesn't work. It was like, just grapple. And, you really want to fight, you got to learn jiu-jitsu, and every other art sucks. That's such a load of bullshit. Then, of course, people learned how to sprawl, and wrestlers came in and ground and pound. And now it's kind of swinging back to the same way. We're like, oh, this grappling technique won't work, or this won't work, or this won't work. But the thing is, you can have all your opinions. What you have to do is have the data back it up. And Stephen Kesting was like, he was funny because he's like, this reminded me of another story from Eric Paulson, who's a famous fighter and a famous coach now too. And he said, when I first was learning, grappling and fighting, he started out in shoot wrestling, which was the precursor of MMA in Japan. And he said, okay, first you're on your back and you pull the guy's arm across and then you cross your leg over here. You spin this way, you go this way, then you go here, you put your leg over your other leg and you kind of squeeze his head. And he's like, this will never work. Like, there's no way this work. How am I going to choke his head with my leg, his head between my legs? And it's not going to work. This is impossible. Triangle choke. Like one of the highest percentage chokes in MMA today. Like, and this is a guy who had an open mind. So, it's very important for me, to always re-examine our biases and see, does this technique really work? Does it work as well as I think it does? Or, hey, does this technique not work? And constantly reevaluate what you're doing. And I think that goes for every martial art, and every martial artist. Like, hey, I do the choke this way. Is this the best way I can do it? It's been working for me, but if it's not working, how about we do it this way? Or, hey, and that's what makes MMA so good in some sense, is that it's this collaborative scientific exercise where there's this tremendous amount of empirical data that says, does it work or doesn't work? Anyway, so that's kind of my take on that spinning heel and Bellator.
You want to demonstrate?
Sure, I'll demonstrate for you.
Where's Miles? I'm just kidding.
No, you really want to demonstrate?
No, I do not. Let's wrap this one up with the end of Bellator, and then we'll do questions as a separate episode. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. Well, we got done talking about Bellator and all those fancy fixed fights, according to Rene.
Not fixed. But it was also Combat Jiu-Jitsu this weekend.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that before we sign off.
Yeah.
What happened in Combat Jiu-Jitsu?
So actually, it was not this weekend, but the weekend before, and it was the welterweight Combat Jiu-Jitsu Championship, and it was unbelievably awesome.
Where was it?
It was in L.A. somewhere. I don't really know. San Diego somewhere. I don't know. Some
West Coast.
Yeah, West Coast.
Okay.
West Coast, not the East Coast.
No. Not the best coast. The left coast.
The left coast. I've never heard that. That's good. No, but it was actually. And then this weekend was the IBJJF World Masters, which is a sport jiu-jitsu tournament. And it's funny comparing the two because I watched all of the combat jiu-jitsu. It was great. And then I watched IBJJF for about 4 seconds and I just couldn't take it. So it was it was, and I respect all these athletes, but, the combat jiu-jitsu was absolutely phenomenal. One of the Gracie guys, Brian Ortega, and was coaching one of the people from his academy, from the Gracie Academy, and he did not lose, but I actually thought he was the best guy there. But what happens is the way Eddie Bravo structures it, there's regulation time and there's overtime. And a lot of the guys were getting kind of mauled during the combat jiu-jitsu segment, but in overtime, you get to start in almost like a dominant position. So you get to bypass all the striking. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them won in the overtime. And they have to do that because of the time restrictions. But it's like unfortunately becoming a way for the guys who are not good at combat jiu-jitsu to game the system a little bit. So every system gets gamed a little. But the guy who won was actually very good, though he was eating a lot of strikes. And of course, combat jiu-jitsu is very young now.
Open hand, right?
Open hand, yeah. But some of them were really strong.
Oh my God, I've seen some serious strikes.
Yeah. And but the guy from the Gracie Academy was really awesome, and I just earned a big fan. He didn't win, but who cares? He did really well. And defending the strikes really well, and it's nice to see. And I hope combat jiu-jitsu takes off. And I recommend all our listeners, if you have a UFC Fight Pass, but I think you can also just live stream it if you want it. But it's a wonderful tournament to watch. And you know what? Honestly, even if you don't know jiu-jitsu, the thing about regular jiu-jitsu, if you don't understand it, it's kind of hard to watch, right? And even if you understand it, sometimes it's hard to watch. But combat jiu-jitsu, you have someone who never saw fights, oh, this is actually interesting. This is kind of cool. And except for the overtime stuff, they have to fix that a little bit. But I was it was really, really cool. Just happy to see it growing. And they crowned a new welterweight champion, and unfortunately forgot his name. But as I said, I didn't feel like he was the best guy there in combat jiu-jitsu, but in way he got through the ranks was still pretty good, and he was a good guy. And it was wonderful. So I hope to see. I think they're gonna have another event for a different weight class coming up soon, and I'm very, very cool, very, very.
Anything on the East Coast that we can?
No. That's I hope some people can make it happen on the East Coast. What we've had combat jiu-jitsu super fights, and my academy's been part of that, and a lot of other ones too. So it's just one-on-one match, but no big tournament. It's just something that definitely I would like to.
What about a Royal Rumble? We get 10 guys on one team, 10 on another.
I love that. They do that in Russia. You've seen that, right?
No.
You haven't seen that? It's basically like
jiu-jitsu?
5-on-5 MMA.
Oh.
It is really crazy.
Did you see Batman and Robin?
No.
Against the Joker?
No.
There was a jiu-jitsu match when they like somebody was dressed up as Batman, somebody was dressed as
it was like the Halloween or something.
Some goofy stuff. Sorry,
that's fine.
But in Russia they do that.
It's actually really dangerous. They have a few of them. They have one where they actually have it in just a big ring, but the other one is in an obstacle course.
Oh my God.
And it's like 5-on-5. And it's really interesting to see the minute it becomes 5-on-4. And I love grappling, ground grappling. But the minute it becomes 5-on-4, if there's anybody on the ground, he gets his head stomped in. Jeez. So you know, there's an element of like self-defense instructors who say, well, you don't want to go to the ground. Well, if you're in a 2-on-1 scenario, there's actually some legitimate truth to there. You know, that's absolutely true. I've always understood that, and the Greeks understand that too. But they need the jiu-jitsu also to get up. Sometimes you can't choose. The issue is you cannot choose when you want to go to the ground or not.
Sometimes you're put on the ground.
Yeah, you're put on the ground, right? Yeah. So what happens is, so you watching, I watched a bunch of this, right? So it's like 5-on-5, and then one guy gets taken out, and then immediately the winner jumps 5, looks around and sees who's grappling, and he runs over, and then they 2-on-1 the guy, and the guy hits him from the side. But it's not just ground grappling. I mean, it's like, it's like wall grappling or something like that. Basically, you just get 2-on-1. So the interesting thing is this is a critique of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and of grappling in general. But it's not, because what I noticed in one fight was like guys were striking. This is what happened. One guy was striking. The other guy came in. So it's now 2-on-1, and they backed him up, and then both took him down at the same time. So it's like, wow, 2-on-1. You better know how to anti-grapple. You know, you better know, because otherwise you're going to get pinned and just, just curb stomped. Yeah. And I love watching this 5-on-5 MMA. It blows my mind. I just really, really worried that somebody's going to get hurt. You know, like really bad. Yeah. But so far they have really quick stoppages, which is good. Like the minute somebody's like not defending themselves, it's over. There's three MMA versions that I like to watch. You know, first is regular MMA, then there's the 5-on-5 craziness, and we talked about this in the podcast before. It's the MMA with in armor, you know, knights. Yeah. It's awesome. Actually pretty good, although they don't allow ground technique, but it's still pretty cool.
And no swords.
No swords.
No swords?
Swords.
They have swords?
Yes.
Holy
it's
mackerel.
armor.
How do I find this thing?
It's night.
Why have you not sent me a link?
It's night fight. So
night
it's basically we wear armor, and you have a sword and a mace or an axe, and you attack each other.
We got to do this.
It was actually pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Let's put together an event. A Royal Rumble night fight.
Royal
Rumble night fight.
The swords are blunted though, but there's not anybody in.
No blunted swords. No pussies allowed. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned we're going to have a special episode of Q&A. We have a lot of questions from people that they want to hear.
And we're going to have some new formats. So a lot of people were saying that we wanted to separate some of the topics out on the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our long form episodes, but we're also going to have some short form where we delve into topics, you know, like 15, 20 minutes. We can do Q&A and just certain specific topics that we want to address. So we'll have these short segments as well.
If you have anything that you'd want to be covered, if you ever wanted to know Rene's opinions on
specific
certain martial arts, let us know.
Absolutely. Please. And we always appreciate the feedback. So,
all right. Thanks for listening. Please share, subscribe, and rate and review. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Martial_Culture and on Instagram at MartialCultureCast. Please leave a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time on the Martial Culture Podcast.